Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today, it is our 2 week recap. So, we will readdress some of the things that we've already gone over in our last 10 episodes or so, and bring up anything new that we wasn't able to cover, such as news. So we've got our add one human. Uh, what kind of human partner would you need to build your first business? AI and weather. Our news roundups. 7 strategy mistakes in AI adoption. Be About It, which happens to be one of our most favorited shows. So thank you everybody for watching that. Does AGI matter? We talked about AI recycling and AI recycling robots, and of course, yesterday's polite prompting. Does it pay to be polite when prompting your LLM? Okay, so today I am joined by Beth and Andy. It is April
May.
May 2nd. Sorry, I'm that guy who writes the wrong date on the checks. Yeah, May 2nd, 2025, episode 455. And this is the Daily AI Show. Thank you, everybody, for joining chat and watching us at a later time. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and sign up for all of our fun things like the newsletter at thedailyAIshow.com. All right. Well, let's get this in. Let's get right into it. Andy, what story do you want to expand upon?
I'm gonna break in before Andy goes because we have some show news that we have not shared, and it's all because of you guys. We earlier this week, maybe a little at the end of last week, we achieved 250,000 views. And that is amazing. Thank you so much. So most things would be like, thank you, 250,000. We're not quite that organized, but thank you. 250,000. And, we're just gonna continue to grow, so please share and tell your friends.
That's
Now
an amazing number, and, I promise that we don't have any AI bots out there clicking on YouTube views. It's not happening. It's all people.
yeah. But is that reassurance that makes the stat now doubted? I
They weren't
promise.
thinking it before.
Yeah, yeah.
Now they're totally
It's
thinking it.
It needs
it's
no
one of
there's
the,
no sawdust in it at all. It's like
it's one of the, agentic automations that I haven't experimented with yet, but we'll try that later.
yeah, no. Cool. Alright, Andy, now what is your story? Whatever June we asked you.
Okay, well, I know that I can't place it exactly in the last 2 weeks, but I know we've had very interesting conversations about the impact of AI on the whole creative, uh, fashion photography, just the whole stack of people who will be affected by the emergence of AI that's very competent at generating photorealistic, high quality fashion photography or product photography, etc. And I wanted to add to that now some news that was printed in The Verge about an interview that Mark Zuckerberg did. And I want to read a quote about his vision of how this will affect about Meta's intentions around advertising will affect that production stack for creative graphics and advertising copy, etc. Okay, so here's the start of the quote. We'll just make it for them. I mean, obviously, it'll always be the case that they can come with a suggestion or here's the creative that they want, especially if they really want to dial it in. But in general, we're going to get to a point where you're a business, you come to us, you tell us what your objective is, you connect to your bank account, you don't need any creative. You don't need any targeting demographic. You don't need any measurement except to be able to read the results that we spit out. I think that's going to be huge. I think it is a redefinition of the category of advertising. So that's a case of, the leadership of one of the most important companies in the world,
Mhm.
uh, saying the ugly part out loud to all the people who are involved in that stack. So I just wanted to add that because we, in our discussions, thought, well, there's always going to be okay, so maybe this changes the nature of photography or it doesn't well, do we really need as many makeup artists if we can kind of correct that with AI? There are gonna be smaller players who get affected. But this is basically claiming that the entire advertising industry is gonna be obviated, look that one up, by the kinds of technology that Meta AI plus Meta's platforms will provide.
Yeah. I think you summed it up. It is the quiet part out loud. They collectively, they really haven't, these leaders, in the space have not laid it out so blatantly. And so, there's been some back and forth. People have, called for doom and gloom before, where other people's like, "Oh, you just need to upskill or replace skills and things like that." But when, like you said, when the billionaire who's in charge of this process, especially a huge ad platform like Facebook, um, says, "Oh, this is how we're gonna do it. This is the way it's going to work. Not we're gonna test this out and see if it works." It's like, "This is the way it will happen." I yeah,
And
that's
already, you have companies like Amazon that want to substantially take over, but by virtue of the attention that they already have and their presentation platform for product search, they already take over the marketing function. So if you're a seller on Amazon and you want to have prominence on Amazon, then you're gonna pay Amazon a 13% marketing fee, and it's not clear that that gives you any advantage over anybody else who has to pay that 13% marketing fee, right? It's just the toll that you have to pay in order to have presentation without being suppressed, if you will, by not paying the toll, and that's Amazon's game in the advertising market, right? So you want your product to show up when people search for something, for a specific kind of product, then you ought to be paying Amazon for the marketing fee. It's a painful thing, but it also it's something that you just have to pay. If you're a seller on Amazon, if you don't pay that amount, then you could be in the doldrums over there somewhere. So we got Facebook, Amazon, Google is being challenged in dramatic ways by the emergence of ChatGPT's shopping capabilities. So another disruptive emergence here is that in the last few days, ChatGPT has decided to really advance their shopping capabilities. And so that's a combination of both improvements to the UI for shopping search. So if you want to find something and get reviews about it and get a recommendation for the product, then you can then through a partnership with Shopify, you can then purchase it using Shopify Pay directly on the site. So this is going to advantage Shopify based e-commerce sellers
Mhm.
and Shopify, Shopify Pay is really impressive. You can use Apple Pay, you can use Amazon Pay on some sites. You can do all those other things, Google Pay. It's pretty easy to pay these days. But Shopify Pay means if you go to a Shopify seller and you've never been there before, when you go to checkout, it knows that you're a Shopify authorized purchaser on another Shopify site. And then it'll send you a code on your phone. Many of you have already had this experience. It'll send you a code on your phone, and you just type that in, and Shopify completes the payment. You don't have to have ever visited that Shopify store before. As long as it's a part of the Shopify Pay ecosystem, So this makes e-commerce platforms like Magento and others less desirable because they can't offer this convenience to their consumers. But by being a Shopify shop, like using the shopping cart that Shopify provides to you as an e-commerce company, then you get to do this. Now, add on to that the ChatGPT, which is arguably going to be one of the largest catchments of consumer attention on the planet, is going to enable this kind of direct shopping experience with ChatGPT steering you to the correct solution for whatever it is that your shopping search is about. And then one click, yes, oh, validate with this code, and off you go. That challenges Amazon Prime to a large degree as well.
Yeah, it
So
is. Like
with
steering, I just wanna say steering is speculation because we do not know how they're making that decision, and that is a big question, right? Because it depends on, the trust that people have that they're getting good recommendations. So that's like a it's a strong word, Andy. Yeah.
well, yeah, it doesn't have to be laden with bias, right?
Okay.
It's going to steer you in a certain direction, and you will have trust in it. And is that trust, you know, valid, or is it biased? I'm not on the side of one who would say, "Okay, Perplexity is trying to steer me to things where they can monetize better," or ChatGPT is gonna do the same thing. I'm just saying that there's going to be a path, and there's a whole new model that's not SEO specifically, it's AI CO or whatever. It's like how do you as a product marketer, how do you ensure that you are going to be one of the top options that a chat GPT or a Perplexity offers?
Absolutely.
Okay, I got a quick question. Quick
Yeah.
couple of questions. All right, so Andy, number one, yes, I think that's going to be a major question for the people who are selling things. How do you make sure that you're seen, right? I'm going to assume that there's going to be tiered advertising. Um, you pay to play. Uh, but my larger question is, w- when did Zuckerberg ever say, like, when, like, specifically they're planning to roll all this out? We talked about there's been announcements and things like that, but how far in the future are we looking before this gets activated or processed?
I didn't read the entire article. I have, like, scanned it,
Mhm.
um, but it's at theverge.com. It's the top story today. If you go to verge.com, you'll see it there. Read that article, and there's much more, I'm sure, that and underlying that is also the actual interview, right?
Mm.
So there's somewhere on the web, there's this interview that, was done with Mark Zuckerberg, not necessarily by The Verge, it could have been by somebody else. It's this The Verge reporting on it with the title, "Mark Zuckerberg just declared war on the entire advertising industry."
Because it's a setup question for the second question here is, um, if it's supposed to happen relatively soon, and in our outside of the AI sphere bubble, we're going to be expecting empty shelves and, you know, highly tariffed products now, and the pricing will all go up. And while it might be easier, uh, is there any indicator that the effect for at least the US, because of tariffs and things like that, that's going to slow this adoption? Or, or progress towards this? Because if you don't have any money to buy anything, is it kinda irrelevant who you're being sold by or sold to by? So, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's not something that is of a sudden. This is a progression that's been underway for some time. The concentration of marketing power, market reach power into certain very large entities. So, like, if you're a marketer of a product today and you want to get attention, you're going to be spending money on Instagram. You're going to be spending money, advertising money on Amazon, and you're going to be spending on Facebook. Uh, and to some degree, you may be doing Google AdWords still, but less important than the Instagram kind of channel in terms of the return on investment that you can get by making those ad investments. Because most most sort of impulse kind of shopping behavior, in my opinion, has moved to social media, and there are now, major players to be affected by tariffs, by the way, including there's news out today that Temu and Shine, which are omnipresent in your social media feeds, selling very low cost items that have been subject previously to an exemption on tariffs for low value items that are shipped in from China. Well, that's just changed. And so there's a disruption of that source of low cost acquisition of goods that's going to, increase the cost to US consumers of a wide range of things. So there are many factors. The tariffs are an important one, but that's not gonna that changes the supply chain model from, okay, China's a low cost source to no, China's no longer a low cost source by fiat. It's been decided that that's not going to be low cost anymore. And so now there's going to have to be a shift by these sort of, let's call them attention mechanisms that are driving the demand to certain suppliers. Those attention mechanisms will shift to suppliers that actually have the lowest cost now. And some of those may be newly instantiated US based sources in order to avoid the steep punitive tariffs that we have on the global supply chain mechanism that took decades to build.
And we should say at this point that we know that we have international listeners. About half of our subscribers are non-US based.
Mhm.
And so we are three people based in the US. So when we're talking about we and what's happening for us, we are talking about the American economy.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the articles that I saw recently was about China basically going like, "Fine, no problem, full force, China first, don't need NVIDIA chips," right? We're just gonna have a total, countrywide, like, moonshot. It's not a moonshot, it's a chip shot, AI shot, but that kind of, full country support, which we've kind of been seeing dribble out in some ways, and certainly the information that we get, is filtered through the ways that Chinese information comes to the US. But, we have been talking about that restricting their ability to get NVIDIA chips and do that kind of, development is actually a forcing function on their development, and that may very well lead to a much tighter race if it's not tight already.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's that pressure that you're talking about definitely forced them to make certain decisions. And with how Huawei coming out with their, what was it, 3 nanometer chip and everything like that,
Mhm.
that's going to be huge for them. Not to mention, it's not just gonna be sold in China, they're gonna sell it to everybody else, right? And it'll be cheaper than anything that the US can, really output, so we'll see how that really affects NVIDIA. The interesting thing I wanna see that comes out of that particular, progression or that tech leap is how that's going to affect TSMC in terms of their position in the global market. It might be a good thing that there is another global manufacturers of chips, right? Another fabricator beyond TSMC, even though there is a newish facility now in the US and things like that. One of the big things has been a supply chain that has, you know, uh, a high degree of possible fallout. so having those other options, plus there's always been tensions between China and Taiwan, so maybe they'll care less. I don't know.
Or more.
Or,
Does this not potentially give incentive to actually take the move that they have threatened and wanted to take for quite some time? And then they control the 2 highest, value chip
yeah,
makers.
I mean, I think that's always been the threat of that idea. But remember, all roads lead to the Middle Kingdom. It's not, uh, everything leads out. So, it could be that whole back and forth and grandstanding between the military powers for the region doesn't concern them anymore. Remember, now they've got since they have compute manufacturing, they're already the leader in sustainable energy manufacturing, such
Right.
as solar and hydroelectric and those kinds of things. They have the number one EV company, electric vehicle BYD company, who's selling their stuff for dirt cheap, you know, relatively speaking. They have lots of
Right.
Right.
To put a
yeah,
number on it, that the top, sold BYD model is, uh, better arguably than Tesla models, and it sells for $15,000.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and the yes, sorry, Jimmy, go.
no, go ahead if you got a thought. I was gonna I was gonna follow up for another question with Andy, but go back a step. Go for it.
Well, they also, have the ability to spin up a nuclear plant in 4 years or less. Like, they've really invested in that, and that, when the needs of data centers became, very apparent, um, that made the US start looking at, like, okay, how fast can we realistically spin that up? And in fact, it's a I don't think we've talked very much about it, but it is a growing news story. Um, the amount of pollution that's happening around Colossus, which is xAI's data center, because they're actually running on diesel generators or something. I mean, they
Hmm.
they're practically running on coal, but not quite, right? Like, I mean, it's super not good there, in terms of emissions and pollution and those sorts of things. And, Zuck just finalized or moved the location for their data center, and again, we're looking at, places where they could spin something up and be relatively lax, I think, in terms of pollution requirements, and that's why I think it got moved. But we're in that place where, China seems to have the ability, both from a slightly stronger top-down, "We said it's gonna be here, and so it is," kind of,
Mm,
government permission, but also, having already done the work to put in sustainable, more, less polluting, um technologies, because they were trying to solve their pollution problem, earlier, right? Like, that's part of why that happened. So that then yeah, boy, does that create kind of a, I wanna say triple whammy, but maybe there are more than 3 whammies in the thing. Um,
well, that actually might be a good topic for an entire episode by itself, is we going over all of the true environmental, impacts
mhm.
and what is being done towards
Yes.
making that more sustainable, those kinds of things. So highlight what's happened now and what maybe future steps would be and things like that. I think that
I
would be
like that
a good episode.
because I have a question. There's been a whole conversation about, the true amount of water that's needed for
Yeah.
data centers, but I does it have to be water? Is water the cooling agent? Is water the like, can we have a different liquid? Can
Hey,
I
I
have
mean,
just you in a
Maybe
Where's the
just
state?
scaling liquid coolers that you use in your home desktop PC up to giant levels. I mean, they have data centers that are fully enclosed that they drop in the ocean. We've done touch points,
Yep.
but having a complete episode, I think that would be interesting. Well, I do want to take a quick second though, because I have this burning question I really want to ask Andy's, and of course, your thoughts, Beth, on this is so Zuckerberg declares war on advertising, on marketing. Okay. Now, I mean, that's a huge amount of creatives. That's a huge amount of how creatives get paid, right? Creatives, artists, they're gonna do their art for sure, but, the whole term of starving artist shouldn't necessarily be a thing anymore. Now, so my question is, if this is happening for marketing, advertising, and that creative side of those, of that industry, who's next? What's the next industry you see the quiet part said out loud? And who's gonna be the leader on that? If Zuckerberg's because Facebook is a big ad platform, uh, which leader in the space is going to say that quiet part out for their industry? Yes.
Well, I think so. I see generative AI as having sort of media, like images, video, presentation quality, image generation is really what the sort of scientific advancement is there. And then generative AI also has this sort of comprehension advantage over humans, coupled with the ability to articulate, very complex, theses, in record time. And so put knowledge workers on that side and put then advertising and media on the other side. And I think that the disruptive capability of the generative AI on the knowledge worker side is hampered by the sort of early nature of the the lack of general intelligence and agentic intelligence on the generative text side, let's call it. Uh, on the image side, you've got another whole industry, which is the entertainment industry, consider gaming and television series and video and movies, feature length films. All of those things, I think, are likely to have their creative stacks disrupted before the knowledge workers will be substantially replaced by intelligent AI assistants that replicate a fully capable human strategist and agent, if you will. So that's my thought about it. I haven't thought deeply about that, but I think the next one to drop will be that entertainment and media, which will be games. The people who have been involved in developing painstakingly all of the different components of games, right? Whether that's on mobile devices or on consoles or desktop, those things are likely to be taken over substantially by AI in my view. Like, those jobs are not gonna be as vital, or
Yeah,
I
I I I see what you are putting down, and I am picking it up. I agree, and I think games specifically is probably where we're gonna see it affect the quickest. But definitely overall in that entertainment industry. Beth, what do you think? What industry stands out to you that they're gonna start saying the quiet part out loud?
So, I think we're already seeing it in, in medicine, and I think that's coming faster, than people are expecting, and I think with the fast pace, it's gonna be pushed because because people who are engaging in medicine, right, like the consumers of medicine are going to want that. Right? So, I got blood work back the other day. I got a couple notes from my nurse practitioner, and I depersonalized it and had a long conversation with Perplexity about, things that I wanted to know based on history, those kinds of things, and now I'm prepared to have a longer conversation with my nurse practitioner, as opposed to trying to have that email back and forth, "Hey, what do you think about this? Wait a day. I think this about this. Wait a day," right? Like, I mean, I can go deeper in the information, but one of the announcements that came out of Google has a thing now, maybe it's I/O. Um, Google is doing a thing where it's making announcements and having people in a room, I believe, maybe multiple rooms. Um, and they're announcing a new imaging model, if I'm remembering correctly, that's trained specifically to be a conversational model for, education, for people like, the idea is that kind of education that happens in a room. I believe it's called AMIE, AMIE, um, and one of the comments on that tweet, or, perhaps it was a Blue Sky article, was someone who said, "Oh, this means my days are numbered as A," and, it was a series of letters, and I do not remember what it was, that they said, but basically, their very high expertise is based on their training to be, able to recognize patterns in large amounts of data. Right? And part of that was imaging, and that's really like, if it was number patterns or text description patterns, those have been available, those have been on the cutting block for a while, right? Those capabilities have been available for a while. But the ability to take in multiples of visual data and be trained in a way that facilitates, consumer conversation, patient conversation, those kinds of things. That's what this was, and I think we are at a turning point where that's gonna happen. Right. People like Andy, talked about, people are much more likely to have, access and store their images that have been taken of their bodies, right? Because that's happening now. We have the right to do that. We can have it on a thumb drive, like, all of that content, all of that storage has gotten much, much cheaper. Um, I think as as communities, at least in the US, we're a little less freaked out about everybody getting our data because it sure seems like that's happening whether we're freaked out about it or not, so maybe it should, be to my advantage that I also have access to my data fairly easily and then can use it to educate myself to do that kind of analysis, right? Like, "Hey, I've had a problem with my knee lately, and these are what I ask me some questions," right? I mean, it's the same kind of interview process that I talk about, of having AI elicit from me relevant content for the conversation. Now it's, "Hey, these are the things. This is my medical history. Ask me some questions that my doctor might not think to ask me." Right?
Yeah. So I wanted to follow up, when you were talking about, data rights or data ownership over, having your own data. And since there already are compliances, that organizations have to meet when handling data, like HIPAA and COPA and stuff like that. Um, is there a space, since we know it's going in this direction? Is there a requirement that has to be done socially, legally, whether it be a copyright thing or a data rights thing or whatnot? Is there some sort of hurdle there that has to be accomplished to make this happen in the ideal way?
Well,
Or if we don't do that thing, then it becomes dystopian.
HIPAA controls what practitioners can reveal to other practitioners. Uh, right? Like you can't just, or what practitioners can reveal on request of people who are not you. You can always request your own content, and and previously, like, I remember getting film on a DVD. I was like, "Well, thank you so much. This is not super helpful for me, but okay," right? Like, I guess I'm bringing this to somebody who has the DVD program that can look at my films and, like, show them up on the screen. Like, we're moved beyond that kind of thing where my being able to access my own data is, is a value for me and easy. We're also moved beyond the fact, where, like, sure, you can pay me $1 a page for your 250-page record, right? Like, no. I give you the thumb drive, just give me the images, right? Those kinds of things. Um, so I feel like there are a bunch of things that are coming together that make this possible. And what it's really turning on is the ability for the patient, the person whose health is being discussed, to be as completely informed as they can be based on the information that was collected about them through their life.
Right. Right. I guess my concern is that when it comes to data, and maybe medical data is not, maybe there's enough insurances with medical data, but I've heard too many stories of it being shifted around, whether it
Mhm.
be compliant or not, and used to inform other organizations' decisions about you. Is there more Do we need more of a, protection against that kind of manipulation of that data? Because it's all about data now, right? It's all about collecting as much as possible so you can get as many deep insights as you want to make your decisions, whether they be business decisions or personal decisions and things like that. Does there need to be a firewall there, that separates that personal data, from being used in certain ways? Things like that. I might be going, off topic here, but so
So it's a valid question. I'm curious what you think, Andy. I I I think for me, this is one of those places where it's so easy to deep fake something. Why why are we trusting, why would we not be suspicious of deep faked health data as well? So for me, that becomes a little less like somebody's gonna use it, whether it's gonna be used accurately for me or not. If someone wants an excuse not to do something with me, I'd like I don't know if they have to get my real health
Like
data to make
like an
that
like
decision.
an insurer, for example, who
Right,
doesn't necessarily have to disclose to you what the basis of their denial of coverage was, unless
right,
you go through a really complex and untimely, especially if you're having urgent health issues, an untimely investigation process that you have to drive yourself.
right.
So, yeah, there are incentives in the for-profit insurance system that, you know, could be, I guess, further, aggravated by the possibility of faking records and/or AIs with bias, which is one of the concerns that's been raised, examining records and then just making a determination based on its biases in addition to the facts, of the HIPAA authorized, records. And we talked about the idea of radiologists, over diagnosing because they don't wanna miss anything, right? And as a result of that, in your record, there are things which, don't actually occur,
Mhm.
that aren't real, but the radiologist who made the determination from reading the imagery didn't want to, run the risk for its company or for the individual radiologist that, they missed something. So they're gonna over
Right.
they're biased to over, diagnose complications that that maybe not are not present or aren't meaningful. So that goes into your record. The AI looks at that. The insurance company has access for, because you gave it permission to go look through all your records, and that's true for life insurance and for medical insurance. You have to sign away, permission to look at all of your medical records, and now there's a growing accumulation of that. So that AI, they're not going to go and put a human in there and say, okay, let's do a careful deliberation about this person's record. It's going to be done automatically, and there's the possibility of incorrect or biased results coming out of that. So those are important. But now I guess the counterpoint to that is ultimately, if we have personal AI agents for ourselves that are
Mhm.
advocates for ourselves, that can interact with those other AI agents that are manipulating, wrong term, managing the process of interpretation of all of your records, then you have a strong advocate that you can send out into the field to
Right.
go and make the counter arguments. And that could accelerate the process. But the reality is that having such an agent is not high on the priorities of people who are developing AI. They're servicing the people who are developing profit because those people can afford to pay for the AI development, and individuals don't really have that kind of they don't have that kind of they don't have that power in the
Mhm.
system to have a common thing. Hopefully, you know it will emerge though through
Well,
the advent of AI. So those are my thoughts about that part of it. I'm not sure we want to go too much deeper into this question because it is related to AI, obviously, but there's some other things that I want to jump into. But anybody want to just react to what I just said?
as a final cap for me, that sounds like a delightful, I don't know, almost like an autoresponder or a macro. You could have that set up, right, and have a natural language process about that. So every time they say, "But this neck X-ray from like 2002," right? Like, excellent, yes. We've had this conversation. Here you go. Here are the reasons why that is not, relevant, right? Here's the affidavit from the guy who read it saying, yes, he was making a general idea, but if it were true, it would have shown up on other things by now, like that kind of thing, so that
Oh,
that could
great
not be an
example. I have a
energy waste.
personal example of that. Every time I go in to a doctor, they say, "Oh, so you're having problems with arrhythmia." What? No, no, that's 2003. I had a short episode of it. I've had extensive cardiology since then. There's never been another recurrence of arrhythmia. Why
Yeah.
why do you keep it? It's in my record, and a human looking at that will see history of arrhythmia, and they launch that because that's concerning, right? Well, yeah, I do have a very tiny little evidence of arrhythmia. Okay, this episode is now that can no longer be transcribed because I just revealed personal medical information here. Anyway, so yeah, let's close out that one. And I want to shift over to another area, which is Google's potential to redress the challenges that are happening to its search empire and advertising as the basis of its search empire. Um, the challenges presented by ChatGPT, by Perplexity, and other AI powered methods of getting the information you need and being a platform for presenting ad ads, although ChatGPT will vigorously claim that they're not ever going to present ads. Uh, the ads that Google has as a foundation of its revenue base, those are probably going to be sustained for many, many years to come. But there are other aspects of Google's overall set of tools that make it really resilient to many of these disruptive challenges from the AI world, not the least of which is the very great competence that Google itself has in the world of AI. It's arguable that Google is really the preeminent developer of AI. Maybe they didn't develop the best chat interface for, consumers, and ChatGPT took that throne from them that was rightfully theirs because of the capabilities that were offered by Google Brain and DeepMind, the research labs that developed the transformer model and how the ChatGPT models work. Um, but now the two things that they have that I think make them very resilient are the fact that most people use Gmail, right? Your email service provider is Google. Very rare that I come across somebody who's still using AOL or Yahoo Mail or whatever else. Most people have Gmail, and even companies have Gmail as that. Whether the alternate would be you have a .NET Microsoft kind of platform historically, and you have Outlook, right? But that's generally in the enterprise. There are very, very few individual human users of the Microsoft mail systems, I believe, at this point. Gmail really is the leader there. That gives them an entree to, because everybody needs to have emails in order to, authenticate. And the other piece of it is the Chrome browser. Okay, so here's some news that came out in just the past few days, and that is that Perplexity, which has been challenging Google's supremacy in the search market by presenting this answer engine as opposed to a retrieval of pages relevant, including, interjecting lots of paid alternatives for your pleasure. Um, Perplexity CEO Aravind Srinivas has discussed plans to launch its own browser, Comet. And that is going to be a little different from the typical web browser in that it is aiming to serve as a platform for AI agents.
Mhm.
So that browser will be built purposely to support agents for you on the desktop or on your mobile device. So if you're going to choose ultimately to use this Comet browser, you're going to maybe decide to stop using Chrome or what's Edge is the Microsoft version of web browsers.
Yep.
And then you have, of course, in the Apple ecosystem, you have their own built-in browser that, is hard to avoid whenever you click on something, inside your Apple iPhone, it's going to launch the Safari browser. Well, Comet may be distinctly different. I don't know anything about it, but it's worth doing some research now. What is the Comet browser and how will it be different? And how will that be as challenging to Google's Chrome dominance as Perplexity became to Google search? It challenged it. It never really, removed Google's prominence. It's just challenging it. It's saying there is an alternative here that caused Google to change its whole methodology to include AI mode in their search results as the first result, rather than all of the links that they were using to monetize their overall business. So the Comet browser, and then Perplexity did two other things that are really important, um, and they're still very small. One of them is they have a pre-installed deal now with the Motorola Razr phones. So Motorola is coming back with the Razr phone, which is a challenger to other modern smartphones, and that's a platform for Perplexity now because it'll be pre-installed there. Uh, just as Safari is the pre-installed browser whenever you want to move somewhere on an iPhone, if you're using a Motorola Razr phone, again, this is going to be a small market share to start, but Razr might be, capable of taking some larger market share by having a lower cost and very competent capabilities on that mobile device, including the integration of AI in a way that Apple seems somehow, you know, hobbled to deliver. Like I have yet to use AI on my iPhone device, and I use AI every day. The only way I use AI on my iPhone is through ChatGPT or Perplexity, and other ways too. But I have Claude on my phone as well. So that's the second piece. And then they also integrated their AI assistant, Perplexity, and they describe it as AI assistant. They didn't call it Perplexity Search or Perplexity, they call it AI assistant. So now you've got Perplexity moving toward agents with their own browser mechanism that's going to support agentic operations. And they just did a WhatsApp integration. So now if you're a WhatsApp user, and that's billions and billions of people all around the planet, you can have direct access to Perplexity as one of your correspondents in the WhatsApp contact list. And
Mhm.
that's a major play. So WhatsApp users around the world may have an opportunity to start adopting Perplexity. So we see this small player out there, but with a very interesting set of capabilities. By the way, they not every one of their initiatives is successful. Their attempts to monetize shopping, which ChatGPT seems well positioned to do now with Shopify, and we talked about that earlier in this show. Their attempts to do that were, full of friction for some reason, and it was very difficult for me, even though I tried being, a great advocate of Perplexity. I tried to start shopping on Perplexity, but every time I would try to, actually conclude the shopping thing, it would fail. It wouldn't complete the purchase for whatever reason. I didn't have time to go back and troubleshoot why. It's like I want it to work, it didn't work. Okay, I'm going over to buy it over here instead. So that's my update on Perplexity, and Perplexity's position and play in all of these major undertakings that are a part of the digital ecosystem that we all play in and are being majorly, bigly disrupted by the emergence of AI.
So, I have a thing on that, Jimmy, sorry. That they quietly also came for Siri. So the iOS app for Perplexity can take actions. You can ask Perplexity to play that podcast. Find the podcast and play it. You can there are a bunch of like basic pain points for iPhone users. And that's one of the things that I find really interesting about Perplexity is that they listen and they do the piece that is doable for them, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's hilarious, right? Because Apple is like, "Oh, yeah, no, maybe not till 2026," and Perplexity is like, "We're not gonna do everything, but we'll do the 5 things that you guys are, like, absolutely asking for." And it's part of their iOS app now.
Great. I have
Jim?
to try that.
Uh,
So there comes alright, so they're coming for Apple, they're coming for Google, WhatsApp, they're coming for Meta, right? 'Cause Meta's thing would be the one that's in WhatsApp now, that's, like,
Yeah.
native to it.
Yeah.
Yes, Jimmy, sorry.
um, I wanted to highlight uh, the hardware side of things, right? So I found it really interesting that they're making play with Motorola, right? And I don't know how deep that relationship goes because they had also announced earlier, maybe late last year, that they were working with T-Mobile as a service provider. So if Motorola is going to be the hardware wise and T-Mobile will be the service wise, I'm wondering how many steps away or how long it'll be for them to move into the OS layer. Right, there's the occasional talk of trying to build AI for the OS layer, um, and there's these intervening steps, um, so it becomes more of because once it gets down to that layer, if you're already working with chip manufacturers to include AI processing hardware, right? Especially in the mobile space. We've heard OpenAI also talking about their own hardware with uh, I forget who they were working with, but um, this seems like they're taking clear steps to then be AI controlled AI controlling the devices. Everything you do on the device is AI based. And this might just be incorporating, or this is how you do it the right way, rabbit. You know, those kinds of things, right? And so I'm interested to see what does it at what point does it enter at these various layers and now become that is your agent, right? That's what we're imagining as the AI. This is my personal AI. It's on my personal device. It's doing all the things that I'm asking it to do because it is integrated at these different hardware and software layers of our complete tech stack. So and I think that's one of the biggest things that Apple's been running into is they created an entire tech stack to try that is controlled, right? Because their big thing was privacy and security and whatnot. Whereas all the other AI, foundational AI groups and big AI groups, they're all about the convenience and connectivity and the processing. They're not concerned about the security and privacy part because they're data companies. They're it, so we're going to collect it all and use it all anyways. So I think those conflicting philosophies is going to definitely it's already caused Apple problems. But yeah, I'm waiting for that announcement where it's like, oh, and this is the new Perplexity phone that is built from the ground up with Perplexity AI. All right. And then if that really hits off and it's really usable, we're gonna just see more of that. But again, that becomes that is a proprietary stack. I wanna see the open source version of that. Can we build it? Is that possible? Or are there pieces that only large AI companies can achieve because it's a proprietary system? They're the only ones who have enough money to be able to build these out, and there won't be an open source version of it. Not with a mass appeal, anyways.
So the open source version often comes from China, right? So that's a source. There's also a story that came out just earlier today that an XAI employee had an API key for XAI exposed in one of his GitHub repos, and it was a special API. It uh, it allowed internal access to things like Tesla, SpaceX, like, so open source may be open source because it's decided to be open source on the front. Open source may be open source because, there's another, company, like a Chinese company that's like, "No, we're gonna just, like, do this." And then there's open source, just either by malevolent intent or just not paying attention to what you've exposed. Um, Jimmy, can I promo the sci-fi show to this afternoon?
Yeah, of course.
Because if you haven't gotten enough of us already, there is a second time where you can join us to discuss sci-fi and AI. And today we're going tactile. We're talking about holograms you can touch because that's actually technology that exists now. And so now we're sort of exploring what happens when AI doesn't just respond, but it reaches you, it reaches back. So, yeah, like emotional interfaces, synthetic relationships, reality, right? If you feel it's real, is it? So, this is the second in a trilogy of this stuff. And the third episode will be next week. We're at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific.
And if you all want to prepare from the sci-fi side of things, watch the entire seventh season of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Meta. Uh, But if you want to see the darker side of things, you might want to try Ex Machina and other in those. Or it's a good story, a good series that you might want to start. Um, before the episode is Humans. Uh,
Humans.
yeah, uh, it's all about androids and
Thank you.
becoming like human.
Just engage with humans before you come to the
It's a British TV show, but it was quite good. All right, unless there's anything else you guys want to cover really quick, I'm going to call it here. And we'll wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us in the chat today, and everyone who watches us later. This I do love these 2-week recap episodes because it allows us to explore some of the ideas that we didn't quite get to during the last 2 weeks, or find out more news and things like that. Again, like, subscribe. If you want to continue the conversation, join our community at dailyaishowcommunity.com. That'll take you directly to our Slack community. And of course, you can always find out more information and sign up for the newsletter at thedailyAIshow.com. All right, I think that'll be it for this week. It was a great week, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you Monday. Aloha.